So the goal of the Employment and Economic Development Working Group is to increase sustainable employment rates and entrepreneurial opportunities for local residents. The working group's responsibility is to engage residents and stakeholders to develop and lead the implementation of an action plan with support from the SDP stakeholders table. Today, our agenda is as follows. We will be getting an update on the EED lead work plan and priorities. Brian will walk us through what the work plan looks like. Then we will hear from Tereza around the Community Benefits Oversight Working Group. And then the next item is a conversation around our EED hiring practices. There's a conversation going on among all of the SDP working tables, and we'll be speaking. Marwan will get an opportunity to speak on that. Then we would like to continue the conversation we were having to hear your voice around what do you call our work plan, around what opportunities and training and programs you look forward to, and what type of jobs you'd like to see. We will have Asal will continue that facilitation and dialogue. And lastly, if there are current opportunities employment opportunities that exist, we'll be able to share that. I'm going to open up the floor for anyone who would like to make announcements, or if you have an agenda you have in mind, we can put that in the parking lot to explore and our other monthly meetings. So the floor is open if someone would like to be on the agenda or make an announcement at the end. Please raise your hand if that's the case. Okay, I hear none. So I'll invite to the floor Brian, who will walk us through the priorities and work plan he has. Brian, are you ready? Would you like to make you co-host?
Yes, or if you just allow me to be able to share my screen, that's fine as well.
Yeah, so I would say let's make Brian co-host so he's able to share his screen.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I just want to give you a basic overview of the strategic plan that I've been developing in conjunction with some of the EED table members. This is an opportunity for all of you to provide some feedback as well. So if you do have any questions, if you think that the work plan, it is a living document, and I do really appreciate any feedback or recommendations to improve it. Because the end goal, as Ishmael said, is to increase economic and employment opportunities for Regent Park residents. So I want to make sure that this work plan is solid and that it will hopefully accomplish what it aspires to do. So if we look at the screen, hopefully all of you can see the screen. These are the two goals for the specific EED lead position. And so the first goal is to actually build relationships with EED stakeholders in Regent Park, specifically agencies, employers, business owners, entrepreneurs, grassroots organizations, in order to actually bridge the gap between residents and resources, and to also work on building stronger and consistent communication between residents and EED stakeholders. That's the first goal for my specific position. And the second one is to build on the research that the EED table completed in 2020 to 2021 that really kind of identifies some of the gaps, the needs, also the barriers, in addition to the assets around employment and economic development, and using the actual research findings to inform the direction of the EED table and the larger SDP stakeholders group. And so if we go down, this is a strategic planning cycle that I've been following. It comes from the textbook from a professor at York University and Ryerson University, Frank Meehl, which was published in 2021. And so I'll explain what the cycle is. So basically what this cycle is one, we have to, in order to actually plan for any kind of implementation of a plan, we have to know what we're doing. So the first step is always to, where are we actually now? And the EED table, as you may know, we've already conducted the research. We've put out surveys, and Aisha from a few years back compiled the research report. And so we know where we are right now. I'll give you some of the statistics and information related to the EED findings. And so then we go into the next step. Who are we? So what are some of our values? What are some of our missions? What are some of our goals? And Ishmael already explained some of the goals of the EED table. And so right now, I think where we are right now in this planning cycle is where do we want to go right now? So right now, it's really about creating our goals, really defining and identifying some of our objectives and also strategic priorities right now. And so this is where I think we are right now, with the hope of after my 4-month contract that we'll be able to actually get to the 4th stage, which is the actual action and implementation stage. And then the last stage is really the evaluation. So how did we do? So based on what we implemented, what worked, what didn't, how can we actually revise it? All right. And so if while I'm doing this, please feel free to ask any questions, jump in, interrupt me if you have any questions. I want this to be an open dialogue, not really me speaking at you. Also, if you're maybe too shy or you can't for some reason because there's too much noise in the background, feel free to place any questions or comments you have in the chat as well. So these are the strategic, based off of the research that I gathered from the report, the EED report, these are the 4 strategic priorities or goals that I identified. If you find that there's too much overlap, I'm open to obviously collapsing some of them and changing maybe some of the names, but these are some of the names that I came up with. So the first priority or the goal of the EED lead for my specific position, but also our working group, is communication. Communication is so important. I'll go over what that means in a moment on the next slide. Access, making sure residents and businesses, organizations have access to the information, making sure residents have access to jobs, to well-paying jobs, training, supports, making sure that residents have access to, to certain types of supports, whether it be support groups, job search support groups, whether it be support in terms of mental health supports, job training supports, human rights and employment labor, or workshops as an example, and space, physical space. What kind of physical space do we actually have in Regent Park right now? And hopefully within phases 4 and 5 will be developed for community members to actually gather. Will there be a community hub that is being built that will focus on the employment and economic development needs of Regent Park residents? And so there's a lot of information. I just highlighted some of the important stuff in yellow. So in terms of communication, as I mentioned, communication is about really knowing where to send and receive information, understanding the information that is available for residents, receiving information in a timely and ongoing manner, in multiple languages too, not just in English, because I know that was one of the gaps and barriers in the research, that there's not enough information in a multiplicity of languages that Regent Park residents speak as their primary language, and knowing how and where to actually ask for information. That was also another barrier. So if we see in the very first, the second column where it says, what did the EED table learn? These are some of the findings of the research report. So for example, the first one, residents do not know where to access information. This was a huge barrier and a gap. And so hopefully through my role in working with the EED table, we can minimize that gap. Another one was residents and businesses need better ongoing consistent communication. This was a really important one. Lack of communication, or maybe only communicating with one group, maybe the TCH residents, but maybe forgetting about the market residents, was also another gap and barrier. Residents requiring communication in multiple languages other than English, that was a major barrier for economic employment opportunities. And then the last one really is a goal rather than a barrier. So residents have asked that for a centralized Regent Park community hub, whether it be a physical, social, and virtual space, but really there should be a physical space as well, not just virtual, where this information can be found. And so my recommendations to address some of these issues that were brought forth in the reports were, the first one is to continue building relationships with local residents. So that's part of my job and responsibilities. So I'll continue reaching out. Every week I am trying to reach out to 2 to 3, maybe even 4 different stakeholders to hold one-on-one engagement meetings with them. The second one is really important. I will hopefully work closely with the communications table. So I know Mershida, I was talking to her yesterday. She's the lead. So her and I hopefully will be working closely together in our tables to ensure that TCH and market residents have access to the information that they need, whether it be through WhatsApp, Regent Park TV, Facebook groups, other social media, flyers, email listings, Instagram, etc. All right. I'll also work with the SDP to advocate for a community hub. So hopefully that is something that we're really gonna work on to actually build a community hub. I believe the Young Street Mission is also creating across the street an opportunity center too. So I think there will be multiple places where Regent Park residents will have access to some kind of physical space. And then ensure that we actually have access to community-based translators, that where we pay them for their work. It's great if people want to volunteer, but I also believe that volunteers should get paid for their work, especially they're taking time out of their day. I do believe that we need to honor and value the work that they're providing us. And it's really hard in this kind of society, that the way society is structured, to actually just do things for free all the time. So I think it's important that we have access to funds. So that's with communication. In terms of access, I went over this already. So basically access is about really knowing about what kind of programs and services do we offer in Regent Park? What do the employment agencies offer? What are some of the different business opportunities or employment opportunities that the new businesses and existing businesses that are in Regent Park? How can people obtain training and well-paid jobs? I think well-paid jobs is a really important one, and sustainable income streams. It's important that a lot of people in the actual report stated that they want access to well-paid jobs, stability, benefits. It's okay, and also training. So for example, even if I know Popeyes is moving into the neighborhood, I don't think they've opened yet. So if someone does access and get a job at Popeyes, hopefully Popeyes would train them and provide them with transferable skills. So if Popeyes is not a long-term career objective for someone, that they would be able to use the training and skills they develop from Popeyes to actually transfer into a different position and career aspiration. Access is also about accessing technology. One of the barriers that came up in the report is that some people don't have access to technology to apply for jobs or to create resumes. So hopefully the community hub would resolve that, but also it would be nice for people to have their own personal technological devices in their houses for a variety of reasons. So hopefully some of the things that we can do, you'll see here my recommendations. One, I'll continue building relationships with businesses, residents, local businesses, local organizations, to develop an engagement tool, but also to make sure that I'm aware of the program and services offered in the neighborhood and disseminating that information to Regent Park residents. I'll meet with organizations to discuss what they're doing to make jobs more accessible to local residents. Ask organizations and employment agencies what kind of jobs are available and what are they paying, and what are their pay scales? Is it just minimum wage? Because hopefully the long-term goal is a living wage, because it's really hard to still continue living in the city off of minimum wage. Asking local businesses what kind of training they offer. I think training programs are crucial to developing the capacity and skill sets of our residents. And to work with major retailers, maybe such as Best Buy or maybe other organized companies, to see if they would be able to offer free technology or refurbished technologies for residents in Regent Park that don't have access to computers and whatnot. Just the last one, because the fourth one I'll talk about separately, But the last one is support. Supports, we know from the actual report that there are a lot of supports that were required. So residents, for example, wanted job search support groups. That was one of the major things that came up from the report. Residents need mentorship programs. So whether it be youth mentorship programs, women entrepreneur mentorship programs, newly arrived immigrant mentorship programs. So there's a need for mentorship programs. They also require workshops and training, specifically around human rights. One of the major findings was that residents felt that one of the barriers was racism and Islamophobia. So in order to combat that, I think it would be imperative and really important to have access to human rights training, anti-racism training, not just for residents, but also maybe local businesses if they want to participate. I think it's important that everyone be trained in this if they're going to be working within the community and for the community and with the communities. And also employment rights. One of the things that I heard was that residents don't actually sometimes know about the labor rights and what companies can and cannot do. And so I think that would be really important. So working with some of the organizations, maybe I'll contact Cora, looking at Dixon Hall, for example, and maybe other organizations to see what they're offering. And so I'll continue doing that. And those are some of the supports that I think are really important. And then the last one is really, I think all three of the first ones, communication, access, and supports, really lead into the last one. So eventually we will develop a physical space. I'm hoping that's the goal. Tomorrow I do have a few meetings with Ibrahim to talk about physical space in Regent Park. So hopefully for phases 4 and 5. So hopefully something will transpire out of that meeting. So basically physical space, residents did really want a community hub of some sort. So hopefully this hub would be able to serve a variety of needs for entrepreneurs wanting to start businesses. We need to provide workshops on how to start your own business. Is there spaces available? Is there any kind of venture capital or funding available to entrepreneurs? Workshops for building a better and more effective resume, maybe even creating a LinkedIn profile, examples, and where to search for jobs. So hopefully all of these could be built into the hub. And so some of the questions I have for the group right now, what recommendations do you have to improve this strategic framework? I know I've gone over it quite quickly. All of you have access. I can see some of you are on it right now, looking at it. So if you do have any feedback, feel free to enter your feedback there. All of you have the ability to comment right directly on the document. Yes, healing as one. I don't know who that is, but please go ahead.
Absolutely. Sorry, it's Marwan.
Oh, hey, Marwan.
How you doing, Brian?
I'm good.
Good. So I haven't been listening to the whole thing, but the last piece around entrepreneurship stuff, I know a while back I had thrown some input around supportive programs like TEF.
Okay.
And it's something that I found some success in, where they guiding towards, like, directing your idea, to try to like think to identify as a social enterprise.
Sure.
Which is a huge thing. I know that's something that we've been trying to push.
Okay.
Across other tables. And then there's also the piece around business plan and feasibility supports, which I think I found tremendous success in the TEF program, supplied the resources to come up with a business plan and a feasibility study, which are fairly expensive.
Okay.
And then I think another piece is like even connecting to his entrepreneurs. So I know with Healing is One, we found a lot of success with our food insecurity initiatives, where we identified mothers who are very passionate about cooking, who have the skill set, but they don't have the tools to operate as a business, which once again fall into the bucket of needing the supports around business plan, feasibility study, getting incorporated, all these little pieces that we're talking about.
Okay.
I think those supports need to exist. The EED needs to make sure like these kind of supports exist for those aspiring entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Perfect. No, thank you, Marwan. Anybody else have any recommendations? I'd love your feedback. If anyone wants to jump in, if you have any comments, you could put them in the chat as well. Does anyone have any questions related to this?
Sorry, Brian, I have a question for you once again. I apologize. Just when it comes just when it comes to these things and these supports, are we actively engaging the stakeholders in this table? So the agencies like Dixon Hall, YSM, and TCH in terms of like these supports that I'm talking about. So creating the supports for aspiring entrepreneurs, like I think we need to actively engage them. Daniels as well. I know Daniels have done already a great job of like, local procurement, but just this piece of mobilizing aspiring entrepreneurs into readiness, I think is a very crucial piece. And I think you need to activate the stakeholders here today.
Perfect. No, thank you. That's one of my questions that's going to come up in a moment. Is to invite people to work with me. I'm going to be reaching out to people this week. That's a big chunk of my responsibilities, is to actually actively engage with all the different stakeholders. So I will be contacting Dixon Hall, Tridel, Daniels, TCHC, to bring them to the table and to really work and activating entrepreneurship opportunities in the community, especially.
So just another idea, Brian. Sorry for taking up all the space. But another idea we had is like right now we're running a safe space that's being run like a community center, which is not really kind of our vision when we started this. We wanted to like empower youth. So maybe just putting like trying to find a way to capture the youth in terms of also the entrepreneurship side of things. So I know we talk about employment all the time, but there's a lot of youth with great ideas and they want to try things and operate as a business.
Yep.
So just to kind of like, I don't know whether it's, coming up with different programming on how you want to capture them. How do you also do the same training that we just spoke about with the aspiring entrepreneurs, but specific for the youth, I think is another great segue.
Correct. Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up. And also, I'm not sure many people know this, but I'm also a teacher in the high school, the TDSB. And working with youth is, I think, a real strong passion of mine. So I've been actually contacting different people at Dixon Hall and other organizations to look at youth opportunities and to work with some of the local TDSB and TCDSB high schools as well, to bring them into the conversation. Perfect. Okay, any other?
Maybe I could start us off with a question, and
Sure, please ask questions, and then I'm gonna. Yeah.
Yes. Could you explain again, if you're able to, what is this framework and how are you using it?
Sure. So the framework is really a way for us to have a more methodical, strategic way of engaging with, to put forth the actual results. So using the results from the actual report and actually implementing plans to achieve some of those goals. So if we know a goal, for example, is that residents want to have access to more information, services, and programs and employment opportunities, this framework is to actually help bridge that divide and that gap. So the whole purpose of this framework is for me and the EED table to use at achieving our goals, right? The end goal is really obviously economic development, increasing employment opportunities, sustainable employment opportunities.
Yes, and then the third column, those are findings you've gathered from where?
Yeah, so the third one, this one here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is based off of the EED community report that was published in 2020 and 2021. After I speak, I'll actually put the report in the chat so people have access. If you don't have access, I'll make sure that you have access to it. And so everyone, if you want to read it, there are 3 different ones. I'll give you the executive summary one. I'll give you the one that's the longer version as well, so people have more detailed information. So that's where all of this information came, but also from my predecessor, some of his conversations with residents and businesses. Yeah. So one-on-one interviews.
And then I'm curious about the last column. What is meant to happen there?
So this one really is the implementation stage. So what specifically will I be doing in conjunction with the EED table, the co-chairs, and whoever else sits on that table to actually implement some of these strategies? So these were recommendations, but the 4th one is I don't want to create those by myself, but really it's about implementing the actual goals.
Yes.
And
So I just want to say also, the Employment and Economic Development also has its work plan. I know that you have your work plan.
Yes.
But the table also has a work plan. And I think they working together, there's very common similarities, of course,
Okay.
because the position was created to help support
Mhm.
table. And I think Fatima is, who's part of the leadership, is already excited to make sure that we're well aligned, so that we're not duplicating efforts between ourselves as well. So that fourth column, I think, would be where there's collaboration in between the overall group and the specific things you're moving as well.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, so the floor is open for others to ask any question, open-ended question, questions that you might feel is 101, but I think we would all need. And like Marwan, ideas, that you feel needs to be highlighted as well.
Teresa, I see your comment. Thank you so much. I'll definitely connect with Fuad in your team to attend these meetings, or at least to attend the EED meetings every other Tuesday as well. Yes, Marwan.
Yeah, Brian, I just looking at this, I just had questions for you, which were around giving out information to the community. So just so you know, like I think there's a huge piece that we triggered when we talk about this position. I'm coming to understand like things have changed slightly.
Okay.
But just coming to understand like when it comes to like centralizing that information, we literally had conversations about having like a physical location to put out job postings, and we've seen like so many we've seen how that lacks when it comes to like effectiveness. And then we came up with this idea where we wanted somebody to connect with employers and those looking for jobs and making that connection. And I'm not sure if you're aware about the Regent Park Social and the communication table. Just want to like learn more about your strategy in terms of centralizing all the information that's EED related.
So that's what I want to come up with now, which you'll see on the screen, which was the second piece there, working with the communications table. So I think it's important that we're aligned, that I work closely with Murshida, and not just Murshida, but also the team, to make sure that I am communicating. Because right now, as I understand, that there's so many different communication pieces that they're not necessarily all integrated into one. So for example, I found out that there are maybe 3 or 4 WhatsApp groups, and that is important, but also my question is, how come there's not just one for everyone in the community? I think there is a need for separate ones for sure, if we want to talk about like the maybe specific needs of market residents versus TCH residents and the equitable nature of that. But also I think it's important to have a streamlined form of communication. So I'll be talking about that, whether or not we can actually put together a WhatsApp group that, or if people don't want to give out their phone numbers, there's Discord or Slack, for example, and other social media devices that you can communicate. So there's that. I am looking also at, in terms of solidifying and really aligning the communication pieces, to maybe creating our own maybe Discord, or working closely with Ibrahim, and I know Michael, I don't know if he's still on, they're developing the app. I think that's important. If we can get more and more community members who have access to telephones or cell phones to download the app, I think that's an important piece of communication there. But right now, I think the communication hub, advocating for it would be really important. The only access right now, I think, is like some of the bulletin boards around the community. I know there's a few in front of the Aquatic Center, a few at Daniel Spectrum, but right now it's still work in progress. So I'm gonna look at collaborating with people for ideas on how to streamline and centralize the communication pieces. Yeah, go ahead, Marwan.
Yeah. So on top of all that, my question is engaging the youth. So I know this is something that we struggle with in STP as a whole. So my first because I remember you did some work with Pathways tutoring some of the youth back then. I don't know if it's the same youth today. So my first part is like, do you engage with the youth today? Is that something you've already done on a offline setting, just as a Regent Park resident? And the second question is, what strategies do you have in place to engage this youth, if you've thought of one?
So engaging the youth today, no, unfortunately, a lot of the students that I taught in the community, they're grown like adults now. I see them in the community, but they're no longer youth. In terms of the actual youth right now, I am not engaging specifically Regent Park youth at the moment, but my strategy is to actually engage them. One, I'm going to be talking to Kenneth Slater at Dixon Hall. He runs these programs out of Regent Park Music, and he engages the youth. And he was talking about having me come on board and other people to talk to the youth about employment opportunities, to get their ideas about what they want for the community. So that was one avenue. Another avenue is to actually, as I mentioned before, is to actually collaborate with the local high schools. So that would be Jarvis, where a lot of the students go, Riverdale, etc., and their guidance departments, so they could actually share that information, and to collaborate with Pathways. So to work closely with Pathways to let them know about information sessions, and me giving workshops and information sessions just to see actually where the youth are at and what are their ideas around employment and economic development. So those would be some of my strategies.
Can I suggest something? That's okay?
Yes.
So this, once again, would be another piece where you'd be working with another working table known as the community building working table.
Mm-hmm.
So they deal with a lot of grassroots organizations, and a lot of grassroots organizations do serve the youth, if not work with the youth very, very closely. I think that might be a good starting point as well, because I heard Pathways, I heard the schools, but you missed the grassroots organization. Were very, very important.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Yep, Marshida.
Hey, Marshida.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. It's lovely. We also have what do you call that? YEA, which is like they're teaching kids in advance what's available, what's out there. Can you guys hear me?
A little bit. I got distorted at the beginning.
Sorry. So we have a YEA program, which is kind of teaching the youth how to sort of navigate when they come to grade, go to high school, and when they're at the age of 14, how to navigate system, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could connect with them. Also, our employment center, it's still enclosed. People can't get access to it. Maybe we could connect with them and get some sort of answer how they're running and stuff like that.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. What was the first one called? The YE? Is it an acronym?
YEA, Youth Empowering. I'm not sure. I'll text you.
Okay.
As soon as I find out.
Academy, I think it's Academy.
Yes,
But
Academy, yeah.
But once again, those are grassroots organizations, right? So YEA,
No.
YUY.
No, YEA is it's part of the health center.
Oh, got it.
Thanks, Marshida.
Well, I just have to say, it's Levi here. I just have to say, I really enjoy what you're doing with the youth, but I am close to senior, right? And I'm one of those people who are not economically sound and almost retired. And so I also, and there's a lot of people like me that are looking for employment, right? And so, so that's my thing, that I need an employment as a senior adult, and I'm not, I'd like some support for that.
Perfect. Levi, would you mind if I spoke with you on a one-on-one basis, just to better understand your needs?
Yes, I would love that.
Would you be able to put your information in the chat if you feel comfortable, or I can put my information in the chat. How about that?
No, I'll put mine right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Do that. Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. You have about 5 minutes, Brian. You can use it however you like.
If there are no other questions, what I just really wanted to ask the group then, thank you. Everyone that participated gave me feedback in the chat and also verbally. If everyone's good with what they're seeing and if there's basically what I want to do is to seek your approval to move forward with this framework, so I can actually begin doing a lot of the work that needs to get done. So the engagement pieces, the relationship building pieces, talking with stakeholders and Regent Park residents alike. So if someone or if the group would like to give me the heads up, if you think it's a great framework, a feasible one that would work, that would be great. And then I will begin my work really tomorrow. I'll start emailing and contacting stakeholders, and I already have a list of individuals that I need to contact. All right. Yeah, yes, Marwan.
Sorry, Brian, I caught the second half of the framework, so I'm going to review it in detail and give my feedback, but it looks good so far.
Okay.
There's a piece that I missed that I wanted to leave with you, which I think is very, very important.
Okay.
Which is around, so once you start the conversation with some of the grassroots organizations, we have actually found a way, Healing is One, we found a way to, in a very sustainable manner, to employ youth at Regent Park. And we've been doing this for about a year and a half now, like literally paid out over $150,000, close to $200,000 in wages just to the youth.
Okay.
And this model, we want to duplicate this model across other grassroots organizations. So it's something that we already take on as an organization that wants to empower other organizations and ensure that they're successful just the same way we found our success.
Okay.
But I think if you're part of the conversation, because it is employment related, I think that would be absolutely phenomenal. And it's something that you could include maybe in this framework, or maybe include in like, your results. That sort of thing. So I just want to like capture that piece, which is very important.
Perfect. Marwan, can you put your information in the chat? I'm going to reach out to you as well. So I think we can have a longer, more lengthy and detailed conversation regarding that, because I think it's an excellent opportunity and I'd like to hear more about it. Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, I was typing. I apologize. Yep. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no worries. No worries.
So,
Thank you.
so Brian has asked if he can move forward with the framework he's presented. Others, what do you call? Yeah, I already see. Good. I was looking forward to one of our leads to say something. Go ahead, Tereza.
Well, I was just gonna ask Brian if you've had a chance to, and I haven't been coming to those meetings. I'm just filling in for Fuad today.
Okay.
But I know that he's been attending the bi-weekly meetings on behalf of TCHC with Daniel, Stradell, and Ishmael and Gail. So I was wondering, have you had a chance to review what's been done from that work plan perspective, and how those things are intersecting? And perhaps it's a larger brain trust meeting that we should be including you in, because you've done a lot of work, and there's a lot of overlap from what I'm seeing to, I think, some of the conversations that have been relayed to me from my team, and it would be really good to have you there.
Perfect. No, thank you.
When did you start?
I just started 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Yes. No, that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, great to have someone like you in the role.
Thank you. No, and Teresa, I'll be speaking to Ishmael and Gail about those meetings. They've informed me about them as well. So thank you.
Thank you. So if with those caveats of making sure to align with the bigger work plan, I'll open up the floor for anybody who objects. If there's nobody objecting, we will wish Brian our blessing to move forward with his work. He doesn't have a lot of time with us. He has about 4 minutes. So his work would be focused and and now he's proposed a framework to do that work for us. So I'll open up the floor. If you object to the framework, please raise your hand. If I don't see any hands, that will be an acknowledgement for him to move forward. I see none, Brian. So you
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Ishmael, I want to ask a question. I only see 15 people in this call. And like I said, I only seen half the framework. So I'm not in a position to critique it like I would like to. Is there any way this could be sent to the overall EED table, those who are not here today, to get a chance to look over it and maybe make some comments?
Yeah, so I think Brian is open to comments and enhancing his framework. But are you objecting to the framework?
I can't. I came in late, so I'm not in a position to object it.
Okay, so
Nor am I in a position to make it go forward.
yeah, so is it possible if you can abstain? What that basically means is that you're not in a position to block it, or you're not in a position, you'd allow for the item to move forward without having to come back another month, because the EED table is monthly. So we wouldn't stall the work. If you can abstain from it, that would be helpful, or you'd want to object totally.
Okay, I'd abstain, but what? Okay, that's fine. Sounds good. No worries.
Okay, I see the hand of Tereza. Tereza, go ahead.
But this is like so dramatic. Sorry, it's like, oh, I think Brian, you have you've put together the bones of something that will be, I think, really helpful. And as Ishmael said, and I think you self said earlier, you're only here for 4 months, so I know part of the framework is to start engaging with all of the people that are on this call, and I think that would be a good starting point for you to continue to build on that. So I don't know, like whatever authority I have, which is none, I'm fully in support of the work that you're doing and what you've done so far. So and then for TCHC, which I have, yay big authority on, I can say we're very excited to speak to you further on this and find out how we can support you.
Yes. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Marwan. For further edits or enhancements or changes you'd like to see, connect with Brian, and he would be happy to make those tweaks. Thank you, everybody. Brian, you have the go ahead. So we'll move forward with our next item, and the next item is Community Benefits Oversight Work Group. For a 10-minute opening. Tereza, you're able to start us off?
I forfeit my speaking right to Esha. I'll just be in the background. I think, I don't know if you have sharing like permissions. We just prepared a few slides.
Yeah, if we can give Aisha and Tereza co-host status. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so I introduced myself earlier. My name's Esha, and I've just completed about 2 months. So I'm going to talk to you about the Community Benefits Oversight Working Group and some of the other updates that we have from the Revite team at TCHC. So we'll get started with the Community Benefits Oversight Working Group, which we affectionately call CBOG, which is a diverse group of Regent Park residents who will assist in determining the distribution of the $26.8 million worth of community benefits through an intensive 1-year-long community engagement process. It will also provide recommendations on the community benefits packages, which will be presented to the Regent Park community for selection of a final package. And finally, their third major function is to build capacity in the community on community benefits design and assist in monitoring throughout the revitalization. So members essentially are tasked with meaningful engagement of as many people as possible around community benefits, like identifying priorities and then translating those into benefits which can be achieved utilizing the funds that are available from our developer partner who's tried out. And we're also trying to reach those who haven't engaged before in order to help facilitate the creation of a community benefits agreement that the community is satisfied with. So since the very, very end of March, we have been recruiting for the membership, which consists of 20 voting seats. So we had an open call out for 10 seats starting the end of March and through April for the 4 TCHC membership seats for 2 youth and 2 tenants who are members of grassroots groups, as well as 6 equity deserving market residents. And these seats have just been confirmed by the selections committee. I haven't actually taken a look yet, but I believe we'll be notifying folks starting tomorrow. The selections committee is made up of 2 RPNA members and 1 TCHC staff who's not a member of the revitalization team, but nonetheless is dedicated to an equitable process. The other seats have been filled by a nominations process. So we have 2 TCHC tenant council reps who were confirmed in April. 4 RPNA reps were confirmed late April, early May. 2 SDP reps who are TCHC tenants were also confirmed. And the 2 SDP seats designated for market residents are still open. And 4 non-voting members have also been confirmed via selections by the RPNA and the SDP. So for next steps, we are welcoming the CBOG members and inaugurating the group at the end of May, beginning of June. And we are also looking to have the 2 remaining SDP seats for the EED and communications working groups filled. And the CBOG will be developing the community engagement plan as their first major undertaking. Tereza, did you want to add anything?
No. Oh, we forgot to mention. So because this is, sorry, I just realized that, everyone apologies. Because this is a year-long process, and we appreciate the time and effort everyone on this working group will be spending. TCHC is providing a small, contribution as an acknowledgement to everyone's efforts of $499 per year, and it's there to help with some of the workload that that obviously people will be taking on, and again, as a recognition of all the efforts that will be expended during that time. So apologies, completely missed that to include from the presentation.
Shall we go ahead with our employment updates?
Oh, I think Marwan has a question.
Oh, yep. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Tereza. Is there any appetite to include other TCH residents and or grassroots organizations? I heard a lot of them were confirmed, and there's only 2 vacant spots for the market residents, but is there any appetite to include other TCH residents?
No. Yeah, thanks, Marwan. Not at this point. So the terms of reference dictate the size of the group. Those terms of reference could be revised at a later point in time. But currently, this will be the seats that you see in Asia. You might want to go back to the previous slide where that gives the breakdown. Those are the seats that we'll be proceeding with in the next year.
Thank you, Tereza. Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions on the CBOG? I know obviously we're looking for a couple of market reps, and happy, I guess Ishmael and Gail can provide you with some more background as well. We're also lucky to have them as members of RPNA sitting on the working group as well. So they're very well versed in the work. And all I would say on that as a last thing is that we don't have necessarily a timeline for when market residents will be confirmed, or the process down pat with regards to those two seats. But if there is interest, we'll definitely encourage you to get in touch with Ishmael and Gail as the EED co-chairs.
Yeah, I see a hand from Marwan.
Yeah, Tereza, in terms of these two vacant market residents seats, do they have to both come from the EED and communication table, or can some outreach be done to fill those gaps?
Those two seats need to represent either EED or communications. We already have the TCHC tenant representatives from the safety network and community building. And the idea with those seats is that there is one representative from each working group.
And I think the Employment and Economic Development Work Group is so flexible that any resident from market who's interested in sitting at that table need to just be interested in employment and economic development, and that's the only factor. So I'm hoping that Marwan, anyone you have in mind, could be flexible enough to represent the EED table.
No, absolutely. And I think I just want to understand, like, what are the limitations and the barriers for those who want to apply for this position. But can a market rent as a co-chair of another working table have membership to the EED table and then fill that seat?
Yeah. What do you call it? We don't have limitations. Like anyone who's interested in anything can be sitting up anywhere. So the only requirement is, as Tereza had said, that they would be representing the employment table and that they'd be connected to this table.
Sounds good. Just reading the chat, and Gail says there's 3 market residents that are already interested. So thank you.
Okay, Rabia, you have your hand up. Rabia, can you hear me? Rabia, if you can hear me, you can unmute. Okay, so hopefully Rabia, when she's able to unmute, she'll let us know. So Gail said in the chat that they are, sorry, what does it say? There are 2 market residents that are interested as well. So yeah, so if there are 2 market residents that are interested, that's good for us. So the EED table would be able to make a recommendation to the planning committee, and then the planning committee will make that selection for us. So anyone who's interested, please email us your first and last name that you're interested, and we would submit your names, your names to the planning committee for recommendation, and then the planning committee would make that selection.
Ishmael, do you mind if we mess up your agenda slightly and just share a couple of employment updates while we have the slides up and running?
Let me see. I had you for 6:10. You're already 5 minutes over past. How long?
We were late starting, so.
How long do you need?
Just like 3 minutes, I guess.
Right, you got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, so first employment update is this new initiative that FWAD has been working on. The Tim Hortons Foundation Camps has employment opportunities for youth ages 18 to 29 at their 6 summer camps across Canada. And these opportunities are open to TCHC youth across Toronto. And I'll post the link to register for the info session in the chat after I finish, unless Tereza has it handy. At the info session, they will be discussing the employment opportunities themselves and answering any questions that folks might have. Please contact Fuad for more info. Tereza, do you want to talk about the intern?
Yeah, this is a quick update. So TCHC has a internship program that's specifically focused on TCHC tenants, and I think maybe could be wrong, but for the first time, at least in my time, we've hired a revitalization intern. This is someone who actually lives in the Regent Park community, and we're very excited to have her on board. It's a 12-week paid personal and professional development opportunity for our tenants. And one of her bigger projects will be creating a mind map of employment pathways for residents, including what they might need at different stages in life. So really excited to connect her to Brian and figure out how we can, create some more of a easily accessible visual, perhaps for residents of Regent Park, and how her work can also support EED. So that's one of the aspects of that role that that relates to this table's work, and very open to discussing how we incorporate that in the most thoughtful way. And for this group, I know that I think last time Fuad shared about the internships, but the next intake will be in the fall of 2022. We take great pride in our internship program. Many of our TCHC interns go on to full-time employment within TCHC. Some of them have become CRAs. Others have gone all the way through to supervisor, like Shane in our team. So we have a very high success rate in turning those sort of like entry-level positions into long-term employment opportunities for tenants, and it's something that's all very close to our hearts in the Revive team and across TCHC. We have one more. I know we're 3 minutes. I can see Ishmael like waiting to cut me off. But go ahead, Esha.
Do we want to do this one or the very last slide?
You can just speak to it real quick.
By the way, you guys can do both. My item is 15 minutes. I don't mind letting you guys 10 minutes or so. It's fine.
Tereza, maybe you can share about the YEY.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to drop this in here very last minute. It's not a TCHC employment update, but the Youth Empower Youth, it's a grassroots group, and they are currently on the lookout for a new project coordinator. So if that hasn't made its way over to some of the EED members, we will share that with you, and please spread the word, because I'm sure there'll be other really great people that can take on that work from ESA. And Ishmael promised that was it. It's the last one. Thank you so much.
Oh, this was the last one.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, just very quickly. The Regent Park Summer Safety Jam is coming up on June 4th, and event partners will be sharing employment opportunities and other community updates, although there's going to be lots and lots of activities throughout the event. There will be a bazaar, so we're inviting TCHC tenants who have non-food-based small businesses or social enterprises to please get in touch with us. We have several local food vendors participating already, but we should have space for for other types of vendors. So just please connect with us at talkregentpark@torontohousing.ca.
Marshida has a question. Go ahead, Marshida.
Oh no, I just want to have a question about this poster. I know this has not been published in the wider. People have been asking, but I tried my best to do it. Can you guys still hear me? Sorry, I don't know. I'm having
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, and then somebody was asking, are you guys going to be doing the, last time when you had this type of event, you guys did like, car washing for youth, and then they were earning some money and stuff like that. They're wondering if you guys going to be doing in this event.
Oh, this is new. I haven't heard of this happening before.
Yeah, I heard that before because there were youth were like getting the car, they were washing, they're earning some money and things like that, and they're just wondering if that opportunity can be happen in this event.
Possibly.
Sorry, go ahead, Tereza.
I was going to say possibly not given the timeline. However, lots of other events will be coming up in the summer. So we would love to. Well, we would love to learn more around how it was set up last time and who we can partner with and support that as an activity as well. Always up for those old new ideas and reviving them in the post-COVID world. And I'm gonna shut up now. Ishmael is going to kick us out.
I have no worries. We have to give what the people want. Marwan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Tereza, I'm just wondering if there's an appetite to bring a piece like this, even if it's employment related, to the community building working group, just because of the grassroots organizations that already exist there. Just in terms of, possible synergies, if there's an appetite to include some of the pieces that they're doing, like Murshid is talking about right now. So I'm sorry, it's another layer, but I think we need to take advantage of the existing working tables to maximize. If you want numbers, I think community building has a great table that does a lot of outreach, that has not just outreach, there's a lot of grassroots that do have a lot of outreach. So I think just trying to funnel some of these conversations through these working tables, I think would be more beneficial than harm. Thank you.
Oh, no, for sure. And we have literally just finalized the flyer, and the communication hasn't really gone out fully yet. So we'll be reaching out to all the working groups within the STP and different and various other channels. We definitely want all the outreach that we can get and support with this. And for this one, it's something that's been running since 2011. I probably don't need to tell you guys that because you've lived in Regent Park a lot longer than I have been here. But it's always been very much a safety-focused event, at the beginning of summer. So that will be our main focus for the event, and an opportunity to bring the community together, which we've been robbed of that for the last couple of years. So please do share with everyone, and we'll make sure this is circulated to people. Thank you.
Thank you, Tereza. I think it showcases how excited people are and what you've presented. That's why people were engaged with it. So we're glad to hear all those new and fascinating things. So the next item on our agenda is EED, the Employment and Economic Development Hiring Practices. I'd like to invite Marwan to speak on it, but I hope Marwan is able to speak on it while respecting some of the confidentiality that we've used in the EED hiring practice. I'm hoping that he's able to speak to it in ways that are respectful of those confidentiality, and speak to the issues that he feels needs addressing. So Marwan, I'll call up on you to give us, to start us off with the item.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. I guess my first time getting a chance to speak without my hand up, which is good. Yeah, I just want to say, my energy is kind of low today. I have brought up this item several times across different working tables, and I definitely wanted to bring it here just for transparency. The piece that I'm talking about is I have seen the EED hiring practice that just happened recently, and I don't think it was convincing from what I've seen. I also want to flag that we've been very dependent on organization support and using their using their policies and procedures and their hiring practices to move our boat along. And I think it's about time to create our own hiring strategy and not depend on the different organizations that already exist in all these working tables. So essentially, one of the biggest pieces that I think I guess bother me is the low amount of people that exist in the ED hiring committee. And I do understand we all do this on a volunteer basis, but I just seen how the low numbers can influence a decision and harm just harm the process overall. So essentially, my call out is this. The hiring practices that we see in the ED, right now we're doing some research on the hiring practices that exist in the safety table, the community building table, and the communications table. And we want to create alignment to make sure that it's one process that is very transparent and checks off all the boxes. And everybody's satisfied essentially. So right now we are moving this process along to the terms of reference table. And I'm just seeing this meeting has 17 people, but whoever is interested in reviewing the hiring practices or the hiring practice procedures moving forward, I really urge that you become part of this process. And I don't really have much to say. I think my time might have been taken up by Tereza, which was an assist. I wanted to do that anyway. So that's pretty much my piece. My piece is just around if anybody here wants to be part of the hiring practice in the terms of reference, please do let me know and I'll forward this information to Mahadir and you can be included in that conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, just for context as well, the Employment and Economic Development Work Group have also been drafting a document, a hiring guideline. We've been working with Center for Social Innovation to outline that document. So it's in draft mode, and we're hoping to bring it before this group. Once the draft is set, there are only about a few lines and items left to complete that draft. As Marwan has said also, the planning committee is looking to create a task group that will look at all the hiring practices that's happening across all the tables. And there are opportunities for anyone who's interested to take part of those conversations as well. Michael, you'd like to say something?
Yes.
Okay. I'll be sharing, once the draft is complete, I'll be sharing and sending that to everybody at the Employment and Economic Development. And it will come to one of our monthly meetings to review and to comment and make changes to that document. Once that document we feel is good enough for a final draft, we're hoping to send it to Planning Committee to consider it when they're doing their assessment as well. So I'll invite Michael. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay. If you compare the SDP to essentially every other organization I've ever been a part of, the SDP has a much more open and a better hiring process than anybody else. So I hope we don't start from this with just sort of a change for the sake of change sort of attitude, because it could easily be worse when we think we're making it better. So hopefully, I mean, I just hope that we recognize that, like, even with our relationships with the trustees, I don't actually think we've been completely suffering from, their policies. In fact, it's almost the other way around. We've always basically told them what we wanted and made them either accept what we wanted or find a different trustee. So, I mean, there's a lot of good things about what we've done in hiring. And I think there's one thing I do clearly think was a mistake, but, that's just one thing out of many. So I hope we're mostly going to be starting from the process we already have. And as far as this sort of new document that's being prepared, I'm quite worried about it. It's pretty unusual to have a draft of that complexity not be done to what is itself an open process. So when it starts to come back to open committees, I'm going to say that it should be referred back to a drafting committee rather than trying to settle it at the monthly meeting, because it's never gone to really an open drafting committee. And even then, I'm not sure. I know that people put work into it, and they would be offended if it was somehow not used. But I honestly feel like it wasn't really done to an open process. So we should basically, in my opinion, we should start over, and we should take those ideas from the 2 or 3 people and put them into a new open process. I know that that's probably going to be offensive to say that, but I think that would be the best way to do it. If not, it needs to be referred back to some kind of committee that can review it in more detail than would happen at a monthly meeting. And also, as was said, the planning committee will likely set up its hiring process task group or subcommittee. And I think that again, that should be both open and be able to start from the work of the people on the committee, not from a previous piece of work done by a very small number of people. So hopefully we can do that, or some variation on that, and hopefully we can also recognize that we do have an open hiring process, which is extremely rare. So yes, if some of the hiring committees, and I mean, there's no single hiring committee. It's per hiring. There is a hiring committee formed. But if some of them have been small, hopefully we can fix that. But overall, we have a pretty good hiring process in all the ways that matter. And I'm really worried about some of the proposals to go to a more traditional type hiring process, which I hope we strongly reject.
Thank you, Michael. I will lead.
Thank you, Ishmael. I'm glad this meeting was happening. I thought my night was going to end early, but I'm glad this meeting is happening. I have 2 pieces to just share. Before I get into the EED hiring discussion, just some feedback for Tereza and our friends at TCHC with regards to the poster and events. It's really important, I think, to work together with the neighborhood association just to make sure that this dynamic that was expressed at the last safety network is not a perception that people take, which is that we're not working cohesively, we're not working together, just because that was a perception that was left by one of the co-chairs of the safety network meeting. And so I just want to propose that working together moving forward, or finding ways to collaborate moving forward, even though folks have already started meeting and planning, and they've already developed a poster. And I actually want to echo the sentiment that we want to put out for community building to be more involved, because so many of the grassroots organizations that show up to those meetings are also invested in safety. They want the community to be as safe as everyone else. So giving that opportunity to participate would be very meaningful. With regards to the lead or EED hiring, or all this other stuff that we're talking about, hiring process, I can talk from my own personal experiences coming to meetings. And I was at the last meeting when I heard from one of our neighbors, a Black woman who's been striving to get employment in this community, and especially doing this work of supporting the community. And not being able to gain those opportunities. And, I think the question that we have to ask is, what are priorities? Who are we prioritizing for local hiring, right? Like those are very important questions that we need to answer. And also like work in synergy. We already have, community benefits agreement in the work. We've all agreed with some of our major employers that local hiring is a priority, but are we exploring a pathway or careers for folks in our community to be much more involved in community development work? So this is just beyond the working table. The way I see it, I see this as a problem that is systemic across our neighborhood. And what's troubling to me is the folks who are getting hired and funded through the SDP. Many of them are not local residents, or some of us, I guess most of the people who hired are local residents. But how do we make sure that when other new funding opportunities come to this community, that we hire locally, right? Like how do you retain local hiring as a priority? So that's something that I hope we could also explore beyond this table. And I actually agree with Michael that I think it's important for the task group to look at, practices, hiring practices, to have conversations, in my opinion, with the trustees, the folks that are responsible for operationalizing hiring, and to start thinking about how we could prioritize what we talk about publicly, right? Which is local hiring and making sure that we build capacity in our community. Because when these investments dry out in the decades to come, it's the capacity that we build that will add value to our pursuit for social cohesion and inclusion. So I'll leave it at that. Those are my comments with regards to hiring, and I actually look forward to our next planning meeting where we'll be striking that task group and we could all work together as folks who are invested in finding solutions. Because what I heard at our last meeting, at the last employment and economic development meeting from some of our neighbors was really disheartening, that they feel like they're losing hope that these opportunities will not come to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is to Tereza and then to Marwan.
Thank you. And I know those types of events are, just so enticing, appetizing for everyone. The goal with Summer Jam is really to highlight some of the main community safety partners that are sort of operating within Regent Park, and taking our lead from them. I think there's lots of conversations happening in lots of different spaces, so I don't necessarily know what you're referring to around the safety network, because it's a different TCHC colleague that comes to that, as you know. But certainly hope that the groups that come to community building that are safety focused would be plugging into some of the safety network work that is happening, so that I know there's a lot of overlap, but certainly looking forward to learning more around other safety initiatives that are happening in the community by grassroots groups, and definitely opportunity next year to expand on the event and make it bigger and better. So please, do connect us to anyone else who is specifically focused on safety work, and we can look to include them further, which we have with a few others. So we might be speaking to the same people. Who knows? But thank you.
Thank you. So we'll have Marwan as the last speaker, and then we'll have to move on to our next item. Marwan, go ahead.
Thank you, Ishmael. I actually have quite a few things to bring up. The first being, in the most constructive and respectful way, do you know if the SDP as a whole is registered as a grassroots organization or as a non-for-profit? If not, I do think from my understanding is once you have you're registered and you have a structure, you can actually engage in payroll. So meaning, you don't need to depend on agencies to do the payroll for you. You can actually do it as ourselves. And I say this, you know what I mean? Just in a very optimistic view. I really feel like we need to independently operate versus leaning on these agencies. The agencies have done great for us. I'm not taking anything away from them. But now when you start talking about hiring practices and when we do come up with this structure, I think we need to take this whole piece on ourselves, especially when you're talking about the STP has been around for a very long time. I think we need to start taking ownership and start filling positions where we can encourage residents to come to these spaces. Because as you can see, a lot of the people that exist in these spaces are either paid employees from these agencies or really, really ambitious and really passionate residents. So that's the first piece I want to raise. Ishmael, and I'm really hoping like the co-chairs can take that piece back and maybe present it to the planning committee, because it does fall on your table as a ED table, especially when you're talking about dealing with entrepreneurs and all those things. The other piece I want to ask is a direct question to the co-chairs in terms of the existing hiring practices. Has it been a priority to hire TCH residents over everybody? If not, I just want to, can I get an answer from that actually? Ishmael?
Yeah. So like all the work groups in the SDP, priority is given to TCHC residents. Yes.
Hello?
Okay. So hold on, Michael, one second, I'm not done. So I just want to say that piece I have not seen being carried out in the last the hiring process. The last hiring process that just happened, I did not see that taken into consideration in any way, form, or fashion. Scoring, that was not brought up whatsoever. It was more, hey, a good fit for the job. So I just want to raise that flag. And if that's the case, what's the immediate steps in terms of ensuring that whatever happened does not happen again until we come up with a formal hiring processes. And I also want to second, because Michael, you're not on the chat. I also want to second that I agree with you. We should not lean on something that has already been created in a closed setting. It was not an open discussion. It wasn't, something that I was aware of. So I do want to restart those conversations. And I just want to say I agree with you, Michael, in that piece. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So just to conclude on my end, Michael, you want to say something?
Yeah.
Okay, could you go ahead?
Yeah, it's very difficult to find like the right structure that works for all purposes. It's much more difficult than it seems because, first of all, even as an unincorporated organization, we can have a payroll. That's not the limitation. So just so people know, we could hire somebody directly as the SDP.
Could you not interrupt? Michael, could you finish?
Yeah, so we could hire somebody directly as the SDP. What we cannot do directly as the SDP is receive funds from most funding organizations. It's actually the funder that requires an incorporated organization, not the hiring process. But because there's almost no way to hire anybody unless you've met the funder's conditions, that's why that comes into play. But it's not a technical limitation on the ability to hire. It's a technical limitation imposed by the funder. It's not even a general limitation. If somebody wanted to give money to the SDP could set up its own bank account without being incorporated. We could do that. It's just that there's no point in doing it because funders don't want to do it that way. So this is entirely driven by the funders, not by the bank, not by the government, not by anybody else. From all those other points of view, we could hire as the SDP. It's the funders that always ask for a trustee. Now, as far as whether we should become incorporated, I'm always in favor of being as independent as possible. The problem is that the structure that is required for incorporation is worse than the structure we currently have. And this has been a bane of existence for like 40 years. You cannot set up an incorporated organization that has the right structure. It's always been extremely difficult. And that's why we have got a good structure that is not incorporated. I'd love to find some way to have an equivalent structure that is incorporated, but that's the thing that the government won't allow. And maybe we can work on that, but it's a major project to try to find a lawyer who will not tell us how to set up an incorporation, because I can do that without a lawyer. It's so easy. But will tell us if there's some way that we can keep our current structure as an incorporated body, and I believe we cannot, which is why in this case, just because we have a better structure right now, I'd be against being incorporated, even though I'm normally in favor of it. But if we wanted to go that route, it's an extremely difficult task because you are dealing with problematic government rules that there may be a workaround for, but I haven't seen one in 40 years.
Yeah, so thank you. So I think the item we're talking about right now, in terms of the structure of the SDP, I think that's a bigger conversation than here at the EED table. So I think that's a question that involves the stakeholders table and maybe planning committee. So Marwan, are you going to respond around that item, which I think, as I said before, it's over the heads of the EED table, or you have something else to say?
No, I think it's something that should be presented from the EED table to the planning committee to get escalated, because this is something within their realm.
So the structure of the network, I don't think is within the purview of the employment table.
Not the structure. You're misunderstanding me. The idea of getting incorporated.
So that
can be brought
involves,
forward.
yeah, that involves the structure of changing the whole nature of the whole stakeholders table. So I would say it's outside our scope in terms of what that looks like. I think you can bring it up planning committee to discuss that. So just to conclude this item, as I just want to provide closing remarks, which is that as part of the co-chair of the Employment and Economic Development Working Group, myself being a Toronto Community Housing and other co-chairs, I have led the hiring process. And in that hiring committee, we've invited residents and others who are at this table to participate. And we've created a process together, and we've made a decision together. I think like anything else within the SDP network, it stands for improvement and could be improved a lot with practices and changes. So I just wanted to end with that comment. So Marwan, you have your hand up again.
Yeah, you didn't answer my question. I think Michael, I cut you off, which was in terms of prioritizing TCH. How do you do that, and what's going to happen moving forward? Because I did not see that in the last process.
Yeah, so I think as you can tell, you and I have disagreed on our experiences, and as I've said to you before, there is a committee. There's a draft document that will be presented, and that draft document will be brought to everybody who's here to change, review, add, and once we find the document to our standard, we will be passing it to the planning committee, who's also starting a task group that's looking at all the hiring process of the network. So I see Tereza. Tereza?
Well, similar comment to what Brian's doing. It's always good to start somewhere. You have to have something to discuss it further. So I think that would be really helpful to see what's been put forward as a as a draft. So I don't know if I understood your question, Marwan. Do you mean like hiring processes for EED or the whole of the SDP? If you just
across the board, Tereza, across the board.
Like as in across the board as in SDP, or across the board in terms of SDP. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so the planning committee is looking at that. So I see several hands up. We do have another agenda item, and I only have a few minutes left on our agenda.
I'm going to be very quick, Ishmael.
So if it's in repetition, I would rather not have it, but if it's something new, go ahead.
Thank you, Ishmael. Tereza, I just want to make sure that you make this distinction. There's a process where we're talking about local hiring across the SDP or hiring practices on the various working groups, which is underway. But I brought to this meeting the need to explore with employers and partners their commitment to local hiring. So I'm hoping TCHC in their hiring practices just like we sort of committed in our community benefits discussions that TCHC local residents were a priority, how does that actually happen when it comes to applications? When it comes to Tridel, when it comes to Daniel's, when it comes to any other major employer in our neighborhood, how do we prioritize local hiring? So that's a question that I'm hoping that will be addressed at future meetings, and hopefully will be informed through the conversations we're having at the SDP with regards to prioritizing local hiring. So I just want to make sure that distinction is made so that you're aware that there are two conversations.
Yeah, thank you.
The document that Marwan is referring to is a SDP related document, which is what I was asking for clarification on. So that's fine. And I know you joined late. We were just talking about a local resident we've hired as an intern through our TCHC program. And, you know, more than happy to provide a larger overview of the different hiring programs that TCHC has specifically, not just in Regent Park, but all the other communities as well. I was just on an interview panel for YouthWorks, which is another youth hiring and employment opportunity. So if that is helpful, that is something that we'll be doing as part of that work mapping out of like employment opportunities for local residents, and hope that we can have more conversations around that once the work progresses.
Yeah. So I think Asal, my apologies. Your item, I don't believe we'll be able to get to. I don't think 7 minutes
I was
would make
going to suggest that maybe we hold that one and have, because it's good for full conversation, and maybe I can just present on some of the updates on, like, I just have a couple of quick opportunity updates, if that's okay.
Thank you for that. Marwan, I think we're closing the item. Is there last thing you want to say?
Yeah, you still didn't answer my question, which was how do you score on local hiring? I'm still waiting for that response. How do you score on local hiring? You just said local hiring, TCH residents is a priority. How do you score on that? Very simple question. How do you score on that?
So what we've done was, as I said to you before, there are no consistent hiring practices across the SDP. What we've done at the EED table is, as a hiring committee, we sit together, we co-create a selection criteria to look at the interviews. We co-create how to assess for the interview, and we co-create that process. In that co-creation, what we've done was we've created 3 categories: overall skill, overall social character, skills, and overall fit. And in the overall fit is where we put emphasis on being a TCHC resident, having experience in the neighborhood, and all those other elements. So that's how we've typically done so. But in terms of formal standards, there've none that's been developed.
Okay, so can I please ask that you abstain from advertising that you prioritize local hiring when you do not do it in your scoring? Do not say that you do it.
Marwan,
don't say that you do it.
Marwan, hold on.
Don't say that you do it.
I think I've answered your question. Now, what I don't want to happen is a back and forth disagreement with you. Thank you. So I'll open up the floor for Asal to provide those updates. Thank you, Asal.
I'm just muted. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly share my screen. I will be brief. I just wanted to share a couple opportunities. So let's.
Could we make Asal co-host so that she's able?
I think I can do it. I think I got it. Oh, I don't know if what I'm sharing. I don't think I was sharing the right screen. Let me try that again. One more time. Do you see my PowerPoint? Yeah, okay, great. All right, so let's do it. Still see the PowerPoint, right? Fantastic. All right, just a quick reminder that in terms of current opportunities, you can find the opportunities that Tridel is currently recruiting for. Any job postings that are through us or through our partners can be found on our Community Works website. There's a lot of other resources there, like there's resources on like resume building and like networking, interviewing. So I do encourage folks to check out this website. So but I do wanted to talk about 3 opportunities that are currently available. So these are certain student internship opportunities specifically for Regent Park residents. And so there is a student intern opportunity with ERA Architects, and that's for the summer term. So they're looking for someone to start in June, July. And then there is an opportunity for a transportation analyst intern. That's with a BA group. That's for a fall term. There's also a planning intern position, and that's with Bousfield, and that's for a fall term. You can find the details of the job postings by going to Community Works. They are there. Or if you have any questions, like you can feel free to reach out to me. I'll put, if you go to the website, there's an opportunity to connect directly with me, but I'll put my contact information there as well for folks to connect into. I see, Walid, that you have a question.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for promoting these opportunities. I'm assuming that Ibrahim has access to this information, so it could be available on the phone app and on Regent Park Social. So I'm assuming that that collaboration is happening so that more people could find the job postings beyond the TridalCommunityWorks.com site.
No, they lie.
Sorry.
Hold on. They're very Rabia. It's muted, but I can still hear them. That's a surprise.
Yeah, that's so weird. It was muted too. Yeah, so I want to thank you for that. But the question that I have for you, Asal, is a question that I'm going to be raising with TCHC and Daniels all the time, right? And that is, like, these are intern positions. Are there going to be positions that are going to either be created by Tridal or in collaboration with the community that are pathways to careers? So I see, like, for example, planning, right? Like the development industry. There's a lot of that here. Like, but what other career opportunities are you thinking about that will be reflected through job postings or openings so that folks could have a pathway to careers within our community?
So there's a complex, well, not complex question, there's multiple ways to answer that. So one is that whenever there's a job posting within Tridal or within our group of companies, as well as our broader network, we will be advertising them on this Community Works website. So these opportunities are available to residents to apply to, for folks who don't know my role at Tridal, I work one-on-one with folks who are looking for employment opportunities. So then I speak with them, I understand what they're looking for, and I try my very best to connect them to opportunities. Understanding, of course, that construction is our business. And so a lot of opportunities do fall in the construction realm of the world. And when I say construction, I'm not necessarily always speaking about a tradesperson. It's beyond just that. Like you said, the planning, there's also a sales team, there's also property management that's within our group of companies. So the opportunities are quite diverse. And we're always building out through our networks more opportunities for folks. If you're talking about how are we creating long-term sustainable employment opportunities, that is our goal. That has always been our goal. We find that internships are a great way for young people, especially these internships specifically are for are geared more towards students. And so it's a great way for them to get a foot in the door. And from the people who have ever, since my time at Tridal, who've worked with us as student interns, have always come back to full-time opportunities. Similar to what Tereza was mentioning earlier, a lot of times the internship opportunities are sort of the gateway into a more of full-time opportunities. When it comes to the construction realm of the world, there is the Bold Foundation, who is all about creating careers in construction for folks. And so we have, scholarships that we provide entry-level positions. So there's a lot of supports for people to create those long-term sustainable employment opportunities. All that aside, I do want to also say that we're going through this one-year process right now, which is going to help us define how the community benefits agreement is going to be shaped, where investments will be made. And through those conversations, it's too early for me to say that this is what we're going to develop because we haven't gone through the consultation process just yet. So in this next year that we're in this with the Community Benefits Oversight Working Group and the consultations is going to be done more broadly with the community, it's going to help us sort of establish places where investments can be made to continue to support. For example, when I say investments, I mean like investments in training programs and other things that are going to lead to long-term sustainable employment. Does that cover all the different points?
I want to thank you for answering some of my questions. I get what you're saying, that there's a foundation, that there's that sort of discussions happening. But what I'm worried about, Asal, is those conversations are happening without the community being at the table, right? Like, so for example, the foundation that was set up wasn't a decision made by the community, it was a decision made by Tridel. Right?
So the
Tridel.
foundation is, just to clarify, I want to clarify this one point, Willie. Yeah. The Bolt Foundation is a foundation that's been around for a while, right? It is a charitable foundation that Tridel is a founding sponsor of, and we continue to be a founding and principal sponsor of. But that sits outside of this community benefits agreement. Exactly. So when I say this is that like there have been multiple residents from Regent Park who have applied for a scholarship. Who will likely, will get scholarships, but that's sort of outside. Those are sort of additional kind of benefits that's outside of this. And so I don't want you to confuse the two. Bolt is a charitable foundation that supports a lot of the work we do when it comes to employing young people who are interested in construction. So they're a mechanism, they're a partner of ours in sort of supporting that work. So yes, the foundation it predates any of our work in revitalization. Yeah. That is a foundation that's outside of this work, but it is here. Like Bolt does offer supports and does offer priority access to TCHC residents through their programs. So that through our partnership, they have this sort of established. Is that okay? I see a thumbs up.
Yeah, and I see I'm going crazy because it's 7:03. And okay.
I'll go quickly to this. Summer series. This is where everyone is. I think not everyone is, but there's where some people might be tonight. So if you want more information about this, you can check out the website. I'll put it in the chat afterwards, or maybe we can circulate it afterwards in an email so folks can find out about this. But basically, until May 25th, there's an opportunity for folks to apply for a grant to support arts and culture events in Regent Park that'll run through the summer. That's sort of the Coles notes, but we can circulate more information after this meeting.
Okay, so Tereza, something, because it's 7:03 and I want to let people go.
No, for sure. I guess I would just like to leave us with maybe just this final thought. We at TCHC, Tridel and Daniels would absolutely like to solve all the systemic barriers that exist within Regent Park and all the other communities that we work on when it comes to employment. And a lot of effort and investment has already gone into that with leveraging our consultants and other community partners to create more job opportunities for Regent Park residents. And that is something that we'll all continue to do for the next 15 years of the revitalization. So how we solve those systemic barriers is a whole other question, but that's why we're all here at the table to figure those things out as they come. It's not that one thing is better than the other. It's a collective impact that we all have to do. And if we didn't want to do it, why would we even have a CBA? We could have just solved it and be done with it. But no, we've actually put the onus on our development partners to make this work. So we are very, very excited to get the CBA process started and to continue to also work with Daniels the next 5 to 7 years and all the work that they're going to continue to do in Regent Park. So more than happy to have this broader discussion. If I'll put in for an agenda item next time, Ishmael.
Yeah.
It's gonna kick me out.
Thank you, Tereza, and thank you, everybody. We may agree or disagree here and there, but we're all committed to coming here together, monthly work groups, committees, to help solve some of these issues that affect all of us. So I want to thank everybody that participated, that joined us for tonight. Thank you for coming, and please continue to work with the EED table on all the ways that you are attending our monthly meetings, being engaged more at task groups and committees. We look forward to seeing you and building community together. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night. We'll be open for the after party, but officially our meeting has ended And thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And when you do subscribe, hit the little notification bell so you never miss out on any of our content. If you'd also like more, you can find us on our other social media platforms. And if you want even more, you can look at our website.